What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Artful Chiropractor Podcast. My name is Dr. Ray Daniels, and this week we are switching it up on you. We've got Dyllon Mawn of Life University, an absolute stud. He's a KTC facilitator, leading the charge, an amazing communicator, and he's just absolutely on fire with his mission and what he's doing, and I'm so excited for him to graduate relatively shortly. I know he's going to be peaking in April, so he is so close, but yet he's still training so hard and grinding through school and still doing the extra things so that he can continue to develop himself and be ready to serve the masses when he gets out. So he's interviewing or facilitating the conversation with Dr. Jordan Bonham and does an amazing job. Dude's probably going to have a podcast in his very near future. They go into Dr. Jordan's story through school into chiropractic, and then ultimately how he was losing purpose within chiropractic and how the KTC community showed up, and then all the resistance that he had to adjusting ninjas in KTC, but ultimately how they were able to put the purpose back on his mission and just fuel this fire that is so bright right now. He is having amazing success. He's dedicating his time to giving back to the students. He's leading ANTC level 1 training camps, and I'm sure he's soon to be leading level 2 within the near future. But so much love for both of these guys. They go into quite a few different topics, but a couple that really stuck out at me was just Dr. Jordan's process going from a student to a doc, and how even though he's trained so hard, there is still so many different challenges that show up in practice that the principles that he learned from KTC and adjusting ninjas, they just transfer right on over as a doc. You know, there are moments when people show up in his office and he doesn't know exactly what to do. He doesn't have an answer, but he goes home and he learns, he figures out, he trains more so that he can continue to show up for people and serve them at the very highest level. I know people are so lucky to have Dr. Jordan as their doc. But this conversation was awesome. Stoked to have this on the podcast for you. And another great takeaway that I had was just the power of the level 1 training camp. There's so many takeaways and light bulbs and just potential that people see for the very first time, whether it's a doc or whether it's a student or whether it's a doc who's been in practice for a long time. These light bulbs and these possibilities, they show up at these level 1 training camps. So I highly invite anybody on the podcast where it's been a while since they've been or they've never been, please get to one of these training camps and really experience this for yourself. It's an amazing piece of this journey. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Dyllon Mawn and Dr. Jordan Bonham.
What is up, Facebook world? I am here coming to you live from Atlanta, Georgia with Dr. Jordan Bonham from Raleigh, North Carolina. Right, Jordan?
Yeah, just outside.
Awesome. Welcome on, man. How's your week been?
It's been good. It's been busy. Weather's finally transitioning into fall, which is a prime time for me. And yeah, life's going, man.
Awesome. So what's new with you? Let's get into this a little bit. We're going to talk about the Kairos Level 1 coming up this weekend. But before that, I would really like to talk about getting the people to know who Dr. Jordan Bonham is. We've been friends for a while now. We've gotten to know each other quite a bit. We've gone to so many camps together and other experiences. But let's let the people know who is Dr. Jordan Bonham and why do you matter so much to so many of us?
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm originally from Pittsburgh. I currently practice just outside of Raleigh. Found chiropractic through pretty much an injury. I was a wrestler in high school. Anybody that wrestles knows that you're pretty much guaranteed to hurt yourself at least once. Mm-hmm. Found chiropractic through an injury. Always loved science. Always loved artistry in terms of a means of expression. I like to draw. I like to paint and stuff. So whenever I got to chiropractic school, it was kind of one of those things that I was like, holy heck, I didn't know what this was about. Or that this is what this was all about, and really just fell in love with it, really. And kind of, if we get into it, found Kairos about halfway through school, and it really helped me to kind of develop into what I consider to be a relatively well-rounded chiropractic practitioner now.
What were some of the biggest impacts that it made in changing you, especially finding it halfway through school or something like that? How was it? Why was it so impacting for you in your progression?
The quote that comes to me when you ask me that is a quote that's been tossed around a lot lately. success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And I felt like in school I was quote unquote succeeding. I could show qualitatively that I was succeeding. My grades are there. I understood the material, and I could kind of adjust from this standard that is held in school. So I didn't feel like I was falling behind in any of the big parts and pieces of school, but I felt hollow. And I remember distinctly, it was like right after the grind of try 3, which for anybody that's in trimesters, it's the first year of school, which is brutal. So try 1, try 2, try 3. And that's when you kind of start to hit that adrenal fatigue and that like exhaustion, and you've kind of washed away that newness of school where you're just excited to be starting something new and you're really starting to feel it. And as I transitioned out of trimester 3 and into trimester 4, I kind of just felt like I hit this bog, and I wasn't as excited about it anymore. A lot of the motivation came from just intrinsically wanting to get a good grade, but it had a lot less to do with what was the outcome of all this. Like after that test and after that class and after that try and after the diploma, what was the goal? And I had completely lost that.
Right.
So finding Adjusting Ninjas then, which is now Kairos now, it put the purpose back in the mission, which for somebody that typically is black and white, I'm in or I'm out, I'm going or I'm not, it set me on fire immediately. And it gave me something to focus on again.
It's especially awesome to hear. I love hearing your story, and I'm so glad that everyone else here is hearing it, because it's especially awesome to hear that from somebody who did you graduate valedictorian or somewhere right up there? Like, you were the guy that was creating all of the reviews for everyone and just the brainiac in class, and then you felt that you were somewhat empty because school doesn't last forever, and what are we going to do after this? And so you found something that was a little bit deeper lasting purpose.
Yeah, it wasn't a solo mission. I had some awesome roommates, and we would just sit down and crush study guides and jam out stuff. And I definitely had my own sources of inspiration while I was there. So I don't want to seem like this like lone gunman that just went out and took on the world. But yeah, I mean, I always going into chiropractic school, actually my 2 initial roommates went to undergrad with me, and we kind of all just came to this decision that we were going to be chiropractors completely individually, which was crazy. So we were in the gym in our undergrad one day, and we were like, hey, let's meet up. We went to the brewery. We talked about where we're going to live and stuff. And we kind of made this pact. We were like, we're going to go there and we are going to absolutely crush school, and we're going to get out of it everything that can be got out of it. And we're going to graduate and we're going to be the best. And it kind of just set that mentality before we even graduated undergrad that we were going to get everything that chiropractic school had to offer because it would make us the best. And I think now that I have the ability to look back, I think that feeling, and Lance has taught me a lot about exploring the emotions for what's actually happening in them. That feeling of emptiness was my internal realization that was not true. That chiropractic school will not allow you to graduate as the best chiropractor that you could possibly be, regardless of if you get A's on every single test. It's just, that's not the design.
Right. I have, fortunately, I'm not really sure where to label that, but I have also discovered that myself. I came here always wanting to be a chiropractor since I was like 15, 16. Went to undergrad because I had a full ride and just kind of like had a good time knowing that I was going to get here and buckle down. And after about my first year in, doing well in classes and stuff, I finally started to dive into this. And Kairos, much like for you, the same for me, just kind of lit me on fire and showed me the potential. Really, It showed me the potential of like, I had the idea of above, down, inside out. I had the idea of like clear, brain to body communication, this and that. And that, I wanted to be good at it. But I didn't really have the tools of how am I going to deliver the adjustment in the best way possible with the most ease. I see that Jordan Fairley's on here. I just want to give a shout out to you. They just finished a level 2 in Kansas City. I can't wait to hear more about that. And Jordan, I mean, he's been huge to both of our growth processes as well. So I appreciate you being on here, Dr. Fairley. But yeah, like how Kairos has given us a new form of tools and a new strategy to take all these different aspects of how to deliver chiropractic on the table to the person, connected with one another. We say a lot of things like connection over correction, and things like that, and just how that has displayed itself. And now that you're in practice, I'm so excited to hear what has the training in all these years in school, and I know that you're continuing to train since then. Like, what is that? How is that showing up on a day-to-day in practice? How do you see the difference? Where do you think you would be if you didn't have all of this training that you've been doing? If you didn't have this life revelation of there's more to be done and there's a deeper potential here, like what's practice like for you today?
The best way I could explain practice for me today is just a daily evolving process. I'm trying to constantly refine and see where my training can evolve and use work and use better guidance. To answer, there's a couple questions in there. Where do I think I would be without the training? Probably not a chiropractor. And if a chiropractor, I think I'd already be ready to get out. Cause whenever that turning point happened in school, I wasn't really motivated to keep going. And a lot of things started showing up with me, or started showing up in me with that. There was, some sickness, there was some burnout, there was just a lot of stuff. And I think I was training with Kairos, but I also think I was training with myself in that I was setting patterns. Training is literally just repeated patterns to, program your body to have unconscious competence in something that you want it to do. And it allows you to go into a situation that you've practiced, eliminate the noise, and just be. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've realized about the training, that I was training as a student to understand the information so that whenever I was going to apply it, there wasn't a pause and recall, and there wasn't a shuffle. It was think, it was be, it was answer, it was act. And then applying that into the training with Kairos, the same thing on the table, using as little mental effort to come to a conclusion, so that not only could I repeat it multiple times a day and not feel like I was dead, but also so that I can just use the rest of my bandwidth to be with that person and to focus on what's going on with them and anything else that I might pick up in the room. That's kind of what the training did. And that's still an evolution. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I'm going to talk about is I still train as I'm facilitating, because I have a lot of other things that I'm still working on. I spent a lot of time in the physical and trying to be a really good adjuster, because I knew that was the essence, to be able to, give the speed, deliver the power, be where you want to be in that moment, and be specific and precise. Like, that's what I wanted to be. And it really wasn't until I got into Kairos that I realized, I didn't have that whole understanding of above, down, inside, out. I'd been to a chiropractor, but it wasn't explained to me in that way. Right. I had kind of received it in a manner that I just learned that Jordan Fairley received it, that like, if you were an athlete and you wanted to perform better, that's where you went. And I liked it for that. And I still think that chiropractic kind of kept calling me towards it, because to this day, I don't know exactly why I chose that route. I just know that I did, and I felt secure with it. And I kind of just went, and it just continued to draw me in. But my training is always changing, because I'm always finding new things that I'm seeking greater understanding in. And I don't think that process ever stops. However, I'm looking for it to not feel as forced, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And I think that's one reason that I can really empathize and relate to students currently, is because when you know what you don't know, it's very unsettling. When you don't know what you don't know, it's very peaceful.
Yeah.
But when you know what you don't know and you are put in situations where you want to know, it it'll either make you or break you. And don't get me wrong, there's some days and some weeks that it breaks me and I come home and I'm just like, God damn it, I just don't know right now. But there's always, I always return back to that hunger for greater depths of training, either physically or mentally or emotionally, or a deeper understanding in what I'm doing. And I think that's the bigness of not only Kairos training culture, but, of being a chiropractor, is you get to have a science, a philosophy, and an art. You get to explore multiple realms of application and find where you sit, because it's not 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 for everybody.
Right.
You look at Brett Jones, and Brett Jones is a freaking artist, and he crushes philosophy, and I know that he knows the science, but he has his own percentage of that, and he might change in those in different periods. But you look at Lance, vastly different application.
Right.
Lance has always inspired me to know the knowledge so deeply and granularly that you can explain it to a neurosurgeon or the person that comes in with very, very little education.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, I want to encourage that to people in the culture and people in school in general, just that when you can have a knowingness of what you're doing, it allows you the freedom to be even more, because if you know that you don't know, you'll be too uncomfortable to be.
Right.
And that's kind of what I ran into. I got out into practice and was seeing 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 people a day. And those reps can get quick and they can get grueling, and you start to feel the challenge and the fatigue of that. And when you come into situations that you don't have an answer for somebody that came to you specifically for an answer, it'll rack you.
Right.
And then it's a process of, have I trained to drop back in after that and deal with that later? But also, am I going to deal with that later? Do I care enough to deal with that later? Did I put forth the beginning effort to be able to say, okay, I have an idea of where this is going. Now let me research further so I can show up either for that person next time I see them and say, hey, I apologize. I didn't have an answer for you then, but I do now.
Right.
Or, the next time that somebody else walks in with absolute confidence, you can say, yeah, I got you. I've seen that before.
Right.
And that's been the biggest process for me over the past 2 years, is developing that knowledge base.
Yeah. And that starts with first realizing what you don't know. Like before I went to my first level 1, I had a good idea of everything I wanted to do. I was, we had like a building plan, and like it was going to be this and that, and the whole thing I thought I knew. And then I saw how much I didn't know. And one, concept that we talk about a lot in the Kairos, training community is that this is a safe place to fail. This is a safe place to realize what you don't know, because that's just a part of the journey. And we've all been there, and it's a beautiful place to be, because the first part of increasing what you do know is recognizing what you don't know. Being able to see
having the grit to go further.
Having the grit to go further. And I mean, when you show up to these camps, 18 hours, the grit's kind of put in there. It becomes a part of you. And it's just the potential, seeing you guys come through and show us as a student, not look at what you don't know, but just through experiencing, like, wow, I didn't know that was a possibility of the adjustment. Right. I didn't know that you could clear this type of dis-ease within a system through moving a bone, because it's much deeper than that.
Above that, it's, when you're a student or even potentially a doc and you're palpating, we'll just say a cervical spine, and you're feeling things that feel similar to, but not the same as something that posterior unilateral facet dysfunction. Most people palpate that. They know what it feels like. They know what to do with it.
Right.
But what happens when you have the person that comes in and they have anterior facet dysfunction, and you don't know what it is, and you don't know what to do for it? Because when you adjust the posterior unilateral facet dysfunction, it doesn't quite go away. Does the person say, It felt good, potentially. Does it make a cavitation? Potentially. But you're not going to, the chiropractor and the person, it's ultimately the person that truly cares about the outcome and the mastery and the knowingness will continue to return back to that palpation, feel the anterior facet dysfunction, and they will rack their brain about it. And I found that in that knowing, in that greater state of awareness comes the ease for the doctor, which can facilitate ease for the patient. And it also comes a confidence so that whenever you deliver adjustment, we talk about who you are in the moment delivers the information in the communication of information through touch, the state of your beingness. So if you're palpating the anterior facet dysfunction over and over and over, what do you think as a physician you're going to feel in you when you're like, what is this? What am I doing wrong, or what am I not doing right that isn't allowing for this to change? And
right.
then so for me, a lot of the work that I do and I think a lot of the work that we do is to bring a higher level of awareness and knowingness to the chiropractor so that they can remove that veil from themselves and know that in that moment they have the tools to not only observe and understand, but make a correction to the person or the thing on the table.
Right.
That's, I think, my biggest breakthrough as I've been developing an explorations camp has been knowing creates a higher level of being.
And in your time facilitating, so my first ever Kairos Level 1 was, I believe, your first ever facilitated camp out at Dallas, close to 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I got out of that was having someone remove that veil and helping me, guide me through realizing what it was to be. And then when I could be, I realized how much more present I was, and then therefore how much more I felt. What are you excited about this weekend in helping people get there and helping new students get there? What has it been for you, and what are you bringing out this weekend for that?
I think each camp that I do, I get a better sense of what I'm doing matters. What I'm doing is my own manifestation of, the content that we're bringing, because for anybody that's met Brett and Lance and has been facilitated by Brett and Lance, they're big frickin' shoes to fill. So my first couple camps was just, how do I be that? And then after those camps, it was, how do I not be that? How do I be me?
Right.
And in these last, I'd say 2 to 3 camps, both with Darren and Caitlin, I've been able to be more me, and I felt really, really good about the way the camps have gone. And I think, again, going back to what we were just talking about, the more of yourself that you can express in a moment, whether it's facilitating or in a conversation or in an adjustment, the more of it is going to be expressed, the better it's going to go. I think the more authentic connection you can have, and ultimately, I think there's going to be a bigger outcome or a bigger change from that. And my favorite thing is really just seeing that shift, whether it typically happens between day 1 and day 2, where, and as a facilitator, you've seen this numerous times, where people are first searching and they're trying to figure out what in the hell it is they're feeling and what they're supposed to be feeling.
Right.
And then in day 2, there's this transition because they've done it before and we've gone through the reps and we've talked about it and we've showed it and we've talked about the science and the osteo and the arthrokinematics of it. And there's just awareness of a greater depth of this thing. They stopped searching and they stopped trying to figure out what it is that they're feeling, and they're just there. Yeah. And you can see it because the wheels stop turning and there's just this, it's not a glow, but it's like that weird, Zen people have to them. It's just like this. They're so in it in that moment, but they're not grinding their gears about it. And you see that transition because it's like the first day, there's an anxious tension in the room.
Yep.
And the second day, there's this calm presence And that's where the magic happens. And I think the biggest thing that people don't realize that they're walking away with is a further like clarity in what they're doing so that they feel better. Because, and Brett and I have talked about this a lot. Everybody, whether it's through Kairos principles or, the hundreds of other techniques out there, is trying to find a way to get to the answer that they're seeking and then create an effect.
Right.
However they do that. And it has to resonate with you. The knowing essentially creates the outcome. So when you give people that knowing, they have higher levels of confidence to create an outcome. And you see it. You see somebody go from a very unconscious incompetence of a strike or an adjustment to a conscious competence.
Right.
To I know what to do and now I'm going to do it. And when that happens, the person's face is like, yeah, they're like, I knew how to do that, but I've never gotten my brain to tell my hands to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love that. I love seeing that because I remember being there.
Yeah.
And I remember failing at it over and over and over. And then you get it and it's like, oh yeah, I got to do that forever.
Right. Right.
So yeah, every single time that I've facilitated level 1, like that's the thing that I walk away and I'm like, that was awesome.
Yep. That makes it all worth it. Seeing, those light bulbs go off and remembering your light bulb when it went off, the multiple times that it did, and just deepening that knowing and stuff. And what I was going to say a second ago was, man, the empaths in the room, every time, day 2 or the second or third time that we're like connecting and palpating, like you can feel the room just drop in and that ease, and everybody's just dialed in and focused on the person in front of them. And that's where the magic happens. I think I've done 9 level 1s at this point. I'm sure you're in the double digits, with facilitating, and it's incredible. Every time that we go back, there's something new. I'll mention this because I've learned from you a couple times. I always get something new out of it. For those of you that are thinking about coming for your second time, there is a second comer fee that's a good bit cheaper. Investment in self, I think it's $150. So I encourage all you guys to come out there and get a refurbish. Drop back in. You will get so much more out of this. Doing multiple camps, that's what I've experienced, and realizing like how the knowing just gets deeper and deeper, because the more you show up to train, you realize that this is a lot less about the physical, because we talk about, first it's unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know. And then it's conscious incompetence. You know what you don't know. And then it's conscious competence. You know what you know. And then it's unconscious competence. You're just doing. And that's like driving a car. You don't have to think about the brake, the this, the blinker. It just happens. You can have a conversation. Half of us are texting while we're driving. And it's not so that we can be distracted.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. It's not so that you can be distracted while you're adjusting a person, but it's because it's just, I'm not thinking about where I'm moving with this person. I'm just letting it flow.
It's noise. I mean, ultimately, the person that doesn't have to think or thinks less about their action has more bandwidth to focus on other things. That's the reason why elite athletes can just do it. That's the reason why anybody who has trained at their craft, whether it is sports or chiropractic or business or whatever it might be, you can catch them on an off day or a few drinks in and they can still just crush it.
Yeah.
And it's because it's a background rhythm. Now, what they won't have, especially with a few drinks in, is that special something. And the being able to dampen that noise opens up the space for that special something to come through.
Right. What is a special something for you, for those of us who may have just heard that for the first time?
I'm still getting glimpses of the being able to feel like resonance of things that are non-physical. And I think that that's still my special something, just because it intrigues me so much. It was something that I was like, whenever I first heard about it, I was like, bullshit. I was the bullshit guy.
Yeah.
And seeing it happen, feeling it happen to me, and then ultimately feeling it happen under my presence it just levels of knowing again.
Yeah.
And just finding ways to facilitate that and know when the window's there and why it's there and all that stuff. It's, again, you clear space in the field so that you can listen deeper, so that you can allow more bandwidth to be applied to what's going on, or just to listen. I mean, ultimately, it's just to have more space for listening with less noise.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Listening with less noise comes from the training, comes from being able to drop in and be present, whether you're in a third world country with people yelling all over around you, or whether you're in a single room, silent with that person. And sometimes that's more uncomfortable for either the doctor or the patient.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually I had this idea, because like I said, I'm always trying to refine and change my training, that I was searching on YouTube for like some really aggressive alarm clock sounds, or just like heavy like machinery, and just things that they're like noxious stimuli, to download and put headphones in and listen to while I'm doing strikes, and see if I can be in that. When you listen to a song that you've heard so many times, you can like not hear the lyrics.
Yeah.
It's just like there, but it's not even there.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get there with the noise, because I'm super, like, we train so much silence, and silence is comfortable to me, that I want to flip that on its head and see if I can get to that point where I'm in it so much, regardless of the stimuli that's coming in. And there's plenty of other ways to train that. I guarantee any doc on here can talk about when somebody comes in and they don't have a pleasant aroma to them. You have to be able to stay with them in that moment, because they are still a human. They still deserve your attention. And there's, all sorts of different things that you have to train for and be aware of, that you're constantly going to be pushed to say, like, how present can you be right now?
Yeah.
So
Awesome, man. Well, level 1 this weekend, that's where the training starts, or at least that's where the training started for you and I. Training starts in many places, but this is such a solid community. It's changed both of our paths. It's aligned both of our paths, which has been really nice. And I'm so excited to work with you this weekend, man. I can't wait for you to get in town. We're going to have a really good time. It's always good talks. We have the state-of-the-art address. That's Saturday night, right?
Yes.
And that's going to be at the Delt House. And for any of those that are still on here live with us, I believe Jamal and I are going to go live tomorrow to talk about some more things that are coming through Atlanta this quarter. We've got a lot of stuff coming your way, so keep an eye out for that. But Jordan, I really appreciate you hopping on with me tonight, man.
Absolutely.
I can't wait for this weekend. You get in town Friday night. We'll get going Saturday morning, 6 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be late. Do burpees if you're late.
Yeah, that's late. I would say the one thing that I want to end on is, for anybody that has never been to a level 1, we have a lot of repeat people, and I think the choice to repeat a camp is the ultimate testament to the power that happens in that 18-hour window.
Yeah.
And even a big up to the person doing it, because they've decided they want to get more out of relatively the same content.
Mm-hmm.
But to the person that's never jumped on board, I was that person. I was I'm not going to do this because it was called Adjusting Ninjas, and I thought that was ridiculous. And then it was, I'm not going to do this because it's at 6 a.m. and school doesn't start till 7. And then it was, I'm not going to do this because I don't want to be sweaty before class. I was I'm not going to do this person because, and we're always going to make excuses around things that we're afraid of potentially. The biggest thing that I can offer anybody that's on the fence, or even not even seeing the fence, is that worst case scenario, you're out, $200-$300, which isn't that big of a deal, even as a student. I've been there. And you now understand a different application of chiropractic.
Yeah.
Whether or not you choose to use it is completely up to you. but your awareness is this much bigger. Best case scenario, it radically transforms your trajectory as a chiropractor and a person, like it did for me. I imagine like it did for you. And there's so many people in the middle of those two.
Yeah.
And none of it from worst case to best case scenario is a bad thing.
Right.
You know, if you just show up and you experience a different culture and a different way to think about things and approach things, and you take one little bit, that one little bit will be one other thing that you have in your chiropractic toolbox, which is always growing.
Yeah.
So anybody that's just like, I don't know if this is for me, I don't know if this is how I want to do it, anything like that, there's so many facets in a level 1 camp, a foundational camp, that can be applied to everything else in chiropractic.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where my biggest, like, you should try this comes from, because level 2 and level 3 and the different exploration camps, they're definitely more deeper applications of KTC principles, but a foundational camp can be applied everywhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So if you reach out to me, I mean, this week, send me a Facebook message if somebody is on the fence. Dr. Jordan Bonham, I think. I don't know. My Facebook is pretty easy to find.
I'll tag you in here no matter what.
Cool. But send me
in here.
Ask me questions, and let me know what you're struggling with, because I think that these weekends are the weekends that people start to realize the direction that they want to go, even if it's not in KTC.
Yeah.
So
this weekend's all about breakthroughs.
That's right.
Ready for it. All right, man.
Right.
Well, I will see you Friday night. I cannot wait. And we're going to have a killer weekend. So crush your week, serve the people, and we'll see you Friday.
All right, man.
All right, brother.
Care.
Thanks for hopping on. Peace.
Absolutely.
All right, TAC listeners, if you enjoy this one, head over to iTunes or Stitcher so you can subscribe to the podcast and get an automatic download of our newest episode each and every week. While you're at it, we would love a review, a comment, a rating, anything that will allow us to reach more docs and more students and continue to raise the bar in chiropractic performance training. If you haven't yet checked out the artfulchiropractor.com, you can do that for show notes for this episode and previous ones, along with any of the resources that our docs are dropping. And if you haven't yet checked out the Kairos Training Culture Community Facebook page, you have to get there, send a request with a message of who you are and why you want to be a part of the group, because there are so many amazing golden nuggets that are being dropped every single day that are elevating the chiropractic performance game. So with that, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your week as always, and until next time, peace.